Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Search Off the Record, a podcast coming to you from the Google Search team, discussing all things search and maybe having some fun along the way. My name's Lizzie, and today I'm joined by John from the Search Relations team, of which I'm also part of. Hi, John. Say hi.
Hi.
Oh, good. Following instructions today.
Yes.
And also with us today is Erika. Erika, you're here today because of a LinkedIn post that John posted that was sort of controversial in my opinion. John, can you tell us a little bit about why you posted this thing? What was the context of this spicy SEO post?
I don't think it was that spicy. So in the SEO office hours, someone submitted a question basically asking, how can I tell if my SEO is doing what they claim to be doing? And I gave a short answer in the office hours. We just usually just have, I don't know, so like a couple of seconds to answer a question, essentially. And I thought it was a really good question, actually. So I wanted to ask on LinkedIn to see what other people have to say. And we got a bunch of responses because I think partially people felt almost like personally addressed. It's like, how can I tell if you're doing a good job? And Erika put together a bunch of really good points. So I thought it would be a good idea to just have her join the podcast here, and we can go through this a little bit more elaborate way.
So Erika, this is the first time we're meeting, and actually we connected on LinkedIn and now we're on a podcast together. Can you tell us about what you said on LinkedIn that sort of...
I can try.
Do you remember? It's been 800 years since the post.
I can try. So yeah, hi. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. So yeah, John asked this, which I didn't feel was controversial, but I sort of felt like I could see myself in it because I've been both agency and client side, and these are constant topics that come up. So for me, the different bullet points essentially show that there are so many nuances that it's logical for people to be asking those questions. It's also logical not to have definitive answers. Like it's unfortunately or fortunately, it's not like the apple falls from the tree every time. So it was kind of like a few questions that people could ask. I did have my friend Paolo in mind, who has like a small pizzeria in Italy somewhere. And he's thinking like, how can I get more people to learn that I'm here and I'm making awesome pizza? So it was like more about the nuances on what to ask or what to look into to understand what's going on.
Maybe we can take a short step back first, and you can give us some background about yourself so that listeners know a little bit more about you, what you've been doing, that kind of stuff.
So yeah, I'm Erika Varangouli. I'm the head of branded content at Riverside. I've been there for the last 3-4 months. And prior to that, I've been working in SEO, almost like closer to 15 years now. So I worked at SEMrush for years, heading the SEO and brand. And before that, like for 7-8 years or more, the majority of my time was agency side. So that's why I said, like, I've been on both sides of this. So worked agency side with small businesses, large enterprises, and these questions and these themes kept coming up even 15 years ago. So I think it was a good post. It was really good to see people's answers as well to it and how they approach it.
Cool.
The post seemed to focus, or at least the person who was originally asking the question seemed to be asking about SEO agencies specifically. It sounded like this person hired they came into a team maybe, and they already had a pre-existing relationship with an SEO agency, and they wanted to know, like, how do we see if it's going well, like checking in. But would the advice that you have apply across the board to any situation, like someone who hasn't hired one yet, or if you're doing SEO as like a DIY small business owner? How do you see that?
Yeah, I to be honest, I didn't have that context or didn't look into it that much. As like I saw John's post, and it does apply whether you're starting now or you have like an agency or a freelancer doing your SEO or multiple ones. And it's sort of like that relation is crucial to your business, right? So whether even if you have one or you're thinking of stopping and moving on to a new one, it's kind of like the questions and the things to be looking into regardless of the stage you're at, essentially.
Okay, so if you were to start like from scratch, you don't have, you've never worked with an SEO, what would be sort of the first step to deciding like if you want to hire one, if this makes sense for your business?
Mm-hmm. So So that is a good question
Yeah,
for me because until you said it, Lizzie, I was like, I've never thought whether anyone would need an SEO. I was like, I'm an SEO, so everyone needs an SEO.
of course, we need me. I'm critical.
But like, okay, statistically speaking, if you're marketing your business online, you're probably wanting to be found where people search, and people tend to search a lot on Google, right? So that's the first connection with SEO is like, okay, do I have my website on? I want to market my business online. Maybe I've already set up my social accounts, or I have my website and I've set up Search Console. So it's kind of like an initial look into, do I get people seeing my website? Am I getting found? Do I see anything from my pages getting indexed to actually getting traffic and then leads, conversions from it? And I think once you do that, like it's very hard to tell people, okay, just go to a third party tool and see how much your competitors are getting, because probably 9 out of 10 times they cannot do that. But it starts with your own business plan and like why did you create a website in the first place? What was your idea of how much revenue, how many people you could get through the door by doing that? And then if you're not getting there, or it's a slow progress, or you're having technical issues, like you're talking with developers and you have no clue what they're doing or whether they're doing it right, I would say it's pretty much a good time, if not a bit late, to involve an SEO to help you with this. So I would say 99% of the time you do need SEO, but that's a biased approach. Um, you kind of need to assess your business and whether online could be a big opportunity. Can I bring my friend Paolo back into it? Like, Paolo has a pizzeria. He has a reputation where he is. People just know where he is and they go and buy pizza. But it's also a place that gets a lot of tourists, right? So Paolo, for example, knows that if people find him on Google or Google Maps, he can get more traffic, right? And he was asking me, like, how do I get seen on Google Maps? How do people know I'm here and find me? So the moment you start wondering, could I be getting more people? It is a good time to involve or consider SEO as an option.
How would he go about assessing whether or not there is room for improvement?
I think that's tough. Like, I
No.
think if you don't have the knowledge, you cannot really do that.
What would be a good place to start getting some knowledge for someone who's a beginner?
Like, for example, with local, it might be a bit easier because anyone can go on Google or Google Maps and sort of Google a competitor or their own brand and sort of see what comes up. Or if I'm selling anything else and I Google it and I see who comes up right there and then, I get an idea of competitors without using any tools or any expert knowledge, right? Um, we can say, okay, there are tons of Chrome extensions, there are tons of these things where you can start getting data, but without of context, I feel sometimes this is more dangerous for people and how they interpret them. But in terms of understanding the opportunity, you can see like what kind of results come back and how people are interested. Also, nowadays, most people, either for their business or their own, they're on social media. So many times, like small business owners or solopreneurs, depending on what they do, they might even be on a specialized platform, like selling what they make, like crochet. What was it the other day? Crochet mobile phone cases on
Oh.
on Etsy. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like they do have some understanding of what the competition is online and the interest, like what is the engagement on social posts, how much do they sell or the other brands sell on platforms like that. So that's a good start, and they can see how far they are from it, right? You can instantly assess how far you are from that ideal or better performing image that you see.
So would you say that there's at least a minimum amount of knowledge that someone should have and kind of take the time to learn the basics first? Or could they say it's like, oh, I just want more traffic, I will hire an SEO. I have no idea what is involved.
um, I've worked with both kind of approaches, right? Someone saying, I just know I want more from online, and I know I can do better. I just made this website expecting to get much more. And with others saying, I know the potential is that big, come in and sort of help me get there. I would argue this is not even SEO studying, right? It's more like a business product market fit. Like you create something based on what maybe just that's what you like to do. But then usually you don't care if it sells. Like it's like that's my hobby. I like to do this. I don't care if anyone listens to my podcast. But but I mean, like this is an activity that is quite often I meet people who say, I love to do it. I have fun with my friends. And then if we end up increasing our listenership, that's great. But usually it's a business. You're selling something. I assume and I expect you will have done some kind of market research anyway. So you have some idea. And then with SEO, I always recommend reading stuff before you do anything with anyone. Like it was I don't remember if it was part of my answer to your post, John, but I always say SEO largely has to do with how well you do on Google. Google have done a good job of giving more transparency on what is like a standard you have to hit to do the right things or how to do them, what is important, what is not that important. So, and it's written in a way that doesn't have me, Erika, in mind necessarily. It has small business owners, people who don't know SEO. So you can start there. You should start there if you are serious about, hiring someone to help you perform better.
I think it's important to sort of understand the jargon or the lingo that they're going to be using. So anytime you're entering a new space, like even if there is documentation that's written for beginners, the person you're hiring is probably going to be using these terms and things, and it would be good to sort of be familiar with them. But I do try to get around that in the beginner-friendly documentation. So we explain things in a way that should be approachable for someone who's not in the industry. But we still have to mention it sometimes because, like, if you're in the industry, like, we're writing for you as well. So we need to sort of introduce people to that concept. But I think that is part of the beginning to understanding, like, what are they doing? Are they using, like, words and concepts that are actually nothing, or like what are they talking about when they say that they can improve something? What does it mean, and is it actually aligned with a business goal?
So let's say you decide to hire someone because you think there's potential, and they've been working with you for a bit. What are some of the things that you would expect an SEO to kind of start off with when it comes to starting to work with a company?
So I think at the beginning, that flows through the whole relation, right? Working with an SEO in-house or external, we're talking external, is a relation, and SEO is part of your marketing function, part of a business function, right? So one of the first things in that relation timeline is how do you onboard them and how they onboard you, right? SEO is not math in the sense you don't just always do the same things. You have to have a good understanding of the business, the industry, the competitors, then into the business, like what are the limitations that business has in terms of resources, in terms of time? What are their plans for the future? Where do they want to get? Not in terms of like, I want to rank, but in terms of like, I want to be getting to that revenue. I want to have that much, that bigger team. So onboarding is important. If someone just wants to sign a contract with you and you think, okay, yeah, that sounds good, and they don't even ask you questions about your business, your website, your team, they don't get in touch. Like SEO has dependencies as well, right? It could be dev, it could be content, it could be anything like email. a lot of different functions collaborate with SEO. So the first sign, and I would look into it, is how do they onboard you? How do they build that plan? And then do they build a plan to show to you? Or do they come to you with like what feels like a blanket approach, or like they go to everyone with this, right? Okay, we give you X many links every month for that amount of money. We give you that many blog posts for that amount of money. That kind of feels like the same approach to everyone and everything. And it's probably not going to be right for you. So starting from that tailored communication, that flexibility, that interest into really understanding your business and your space, your industry, your competitors is a first sign that is really, really important. Equally, that goes to the people who want to hire an SEO. It's like, if you're not going to be transparent or willing to share information, your limitations, your resources, it can cause issues. Like, an agency or a freelancer may have the best ideas, the best approaches, and the best way to get there, but they will need you to be with them. So you have to realize that from the start in order to make things work.
Because they might put in the proposal, hey, we need these technical things improved, and therefore you need dev resources. And if you don't actually have that for another 6 months, then how are you going to see results?
Yeah. Or work with them to figure out, like, how important is it? What else can be done? Or how can we both solve this problem together? Is there a way without having in-house dev resource or someone? How can we make it happen because it's so important that it happens?
I think we ran across that working with SEO agency. They had put in our list of recommendations, they started out with an audit and then had a list of recommendations for what we could do for our site, developers.google.com/search. And one of the things was improve our core web vitals. And for that, like, I had to open a ticket to the dev team that runs our content management system. And they were like, this is like a P72, like priority, like bottom of the pile. And then I went back to the agency to ask them, like, can you give me, I mean, it's a little bit awkward, but like, can you give me any supporting evidence that can help me with the case with the developers to say, like, this is why it's important. Like, maybe that will strengthen the request. And they gave me a little bit, but again, at the end of the day, like, for the development team, like, they have their own priorities about what they need to be working on to maintain our content management system. And this is just one piece there. So it's all, sort of like all of them working together. That can be tricky.
And that communication, like, you're touching on something that has so many different layers. But it's kind of like, okay, your SEO not just works with you, but also with the dev, the other people they need to. Then we're actually moving a bit into another point, which is a prioritization, right? Why are they prioritizing something? And that's why I mentioned the business function, right? They need to help you understand how important it is for your business. Now, one of the difficulties there is like, okay, what is the business value of improving core web vitals? I would argue anyone that answers that with a dollar figure is probably lying. But giving you an idea of, like, okay, SEO doesn't work in isolation, and it's not just the sum of the parts, right? It's a compound effect. So helping you understand, like, okay, if you're limited, if you're stretched for resources, those things are crucial. Those things are not so crucial, can happen later. These are nice to have. And then communicating that to the devs. Developers also often don't know SEO. They don't make decisions based on SEO, right? So educating them, there's an educational piece in that relation that is huge. So that can help, because the dev teams usually have more work than resources, and they plan according to what is critical fixes or new features. But then if they help you as the owner or the owner of the business or of the relation understand, okay, this is crucial because then it unblocks X and Y, or it compounds with the 10 other stuff we're going to be doing, then you can do a better job of explaining and getting things going.
Do you think the SEOs should offer references with regards to kind of like why they're prioritizing things, or is it enough for them to be like, well, I've been doing this for 700 years. You should just trust me.
Well, both can be true. They're not mutually exclusive, but like in the case of I've been doing it for 7,000 years, I would ask for examples of like, okay, so you did this 10,000 times. How did you get it done faster or cheaper or in that amount of time with that amount of resource? And what was the outcome? What was the result in the end? Not just of this, but like, did you see maybe some things may have a direct impact? But I can tell you how I do it. Like I find references. So first, it's like it helps. I don't want to go specifically into dev teams all the time because that's just an example. But especially with dev teams, it helps. Like documentation, how it impacts things, how to do it properly, how it connects to something else on the side. It helps them kind of get a bigger picture of why that decision versus another decision they would have made on the code is better and can help other functions. And then for me, it's also about communicating those critical issues. Like there are many times I've gone to dev teams and said, oh my God, this is crucial. We need to fix it now. And then we sat down and they told me their crucial fix. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe you're right. I can wait a bit.
Okay, so let's say you've been working with this SEO agency now for maybe 2 quarters, and you want to check in to see if things have been SEOing. What are some practical things that you should look for? Could you walk us through maybe a short checklist of like, what should I be paying attention to? And then maybe red flags.
Okay, sure. So, like 2 quarters is a long time sometimes.
I know. Maybe I haven't been paying. Maybe I just joined the team. Okay, like I joined the team mid-year.
Okay.
And somebody else that hired this agency, and now I'm like, hello.
Yeah, maybe not though as well. Like sometimes I hear, oh, we've been working with an agency for 6 months. We haven't seen anything. They're not doing anything, and that's not true. Simply not true. So, I think going back to the communication, that in the process of that relation being ongoing, you should be seeing some kind of reporting, right? Let alone the fact that I think a normal kind of relation involves the agency or the freelancer reaching out to you, you reaching out to them if you see something wrong. So it doesn't have to be so scripted as like we meet at the beginning of each month just to go over reporting. But as a minimum, you should be able to have in front of you pretty much a plan of what they were going to do in the first or every month. And then a reporting at the end telling you what they did, what they didn't manage to, and why. And also kind of like a tracking and a monitoring of some metrics they will be doing. So it is a whole other discussion, and it's a huge one, like which metrics actually matter to be tracking. I don't know if we have enough time to go in, but it's like, okay, if you have agreed that we are going to monitor, I don't know, organic traffic or rankings or those keywords, and you have both agreed on them and you agree they're important, then you should be getting a report that tells you the movement, at least the trend in how you're doing for those ones. And then just to throw a spanner in the works, like it may not be moving in the direction you thought, right? It doesn't mean they're not doing a great job, but it is the kind of initial minimum transparency you need in order to have the conversations with them. Like, why is this not happening? Or why are we moving in the opposite direction? I'm hoping it doesn't happen to anyone, but let's say it does. So again, like with SEO, I've seen it's very easy to jump to conclusions or someone to promise the earth, the moon, and the sun, and then thinking, oh, my agency does not deliver all of that. They must be crap at it. Let's do something else. But actually look into what they're doing, why and how, and listen to what is the blocking. What is the blocker there? And that can give you some good direction around, like, are they doing a good job? Will the results start coming if you continue in that way? And challenge them. Like, it allows you to challenge them as well.
it sounds like red flag number one is that there should be some communication. It shouldn't be radio silence. Like if you're not hearing from them at all for 2 quarters and there's been no email, like that'd be like, what's happening?
No, 2 quarters?
That's crazy. Okay, 1 quarter. I don't know.
1 quarter? Like I think a week is too much.
A week, you're
so
like,
I have to talk with my SEO and my clients all the time, but like not talk. Like that is another kind of can be dangerous. Like maybe they're very good at relation handling and they're not actually doing work. So there's always that. But at the end of the day, you kind of have some data from them, and if you have the communication, the transparency, like do they tell you when they failed at doing something, when something is, are they proactive? Like I worked agency for years, and clients and the promises made at the beginning were nowhere near what we were going to deliver. How proactive are you in terms of communicating that? Right? Are you telling them, look, your resources are much more limited than we thought. You've not given us this. We on our side have this problem. So we're going to adjust and go there. And then assess whether you're happy with that or not, of course, but how proactive is that on their end?
And taking a look at the full picture is probably another aspect of like maybe they gave you a list of recommendations and nobody has implemented them yet. So of course there would be no effect.
Yeah, and also like, okay, I have a thing for SEO agencies or freelancers who just give people lists of stuff to do, and just drop it there. Like this is everything. So that is lacking context, that is lacking prioritization, probably understanding of the business, right? So it's like you said, Lizzie, earlier about like the terms and using terms and terminology. Usually an SEO who cares, who wants to achieve things with you, will explain what things are, how to do them. They will handhold if they have to, and in many cases you have to, and they will help you get there. Like just giving you an amazing looking document, call it audit or plan, and then just let you do stuff is not how I've seen SEO to work well.
Okay, so basically, when they do an audit and if they use an SEO tool to generate a big report, that's one part. But the more important part is almost that the SEO helps to prioritize that with you.
Exactly.
Works through that and says like, there are 500 things here, and here are the 5 things you should be focusing on first because of your unique situation.
Yeah, exactly. And then provide additional documentation. Like those actions, no matter what they are, they might require technical specs and briefs. They might require content briefs. How are they working with you to do this? Like at the end of the day, that is what helps you get from having something to actually doing what you need to be doing. So yeah, it's super important.
Are there any things that you would consider to be green flags or signals that things are going well? We focused on sort of like the things that they're not doing, but what
or that they are
like, yeah, that they're doing work, and it's a positive thing.
So yeah, it sounds counterintuitive, but I do really like, and I tend to trust when an SEO comes and says you don't need that in SEO right now. Your priorities should be elsewhere. So good SEOs tend to look at other channels, other business functions. They know they have to be cross-functional. So many times, depending on the stage a business is at or the resources available, you have to tell someone you're not going to see that many results from this, but instead you could look into X and Y and then look into SEO a bit later or when you're at that point. When someone in SEO tells you to look elsewhere, it might be a green flag, as much as it sounds wrong. Also, when they don't give you the promises you want to hear. So again, like if I want to be like, how many times I've heard someone say, I want to rank number 1 for all these terms. Maybe they already have the terms and the keywords, right? Someone has said like, you shouldn't be thinking in these terms and you should be looking at it this and that way, and not promising you to get you to place number 1 or top 5 or top 10 is probably someone worth talking a bit more to as well.
So if they're giving you like a realistic point of view or what sort of helping you reevaluate
or not false promises, like at the end of the day, just a bit of research tells you that the SEO does not control how Google ranks things. So you can expect, or you may strive towards being at the top, but an SEO that promises you to be the top one, I would be very, very, very skeptical there and not necessarily get very excited if that is the case. And then also in terms of the impact. So again,
Ah,
SEO is quite measurable, but you have to see like a really deep thinking there that doesn't just tell you what you want to hear. It's like, I want more leads. Okay, we'll get you specific things that they do might get you more leads, but overall from SEO saying you'll double your leads or ask for the mathematical models, the forecasting. Like at the end of the day, even if you don't go into too much detail, you can put down the logic of A plus B will get us to C and question that C. It becomes a bit hard if you're expecting everything from it, but that kind of transparency that it will not just be SEO, you will need X and Y and Z. We forecast this to happen based on X, Y, and Z. They might refer to another example that they've worked on and the impact there, or give you a mathematical model for that. That can help you kind of like green flag that person. They're not just coming to you with like, I have these 10 awesome ideas. I know them to work, but they come to you, I have this in my plan, and I expect an uplift of X or X% by doing it. That's good.
what if the uplift doesn't happen?
It may or may not happen. Yeah, it is quite possible that it may not happen and they have done the right things, right? So I think then you question and you Q&A with them. It's like, why don't we see it?
Mhm.
What has probably gone wrong? Or was it over optimism? Is it that something else is wrong with our site or what we do? Did anything change in the competition?
Mm.
It's like with SEO, that's the kind of process. And that's why I think sometimes as an SEO myself, big part of my work is to educate. It's like I sign up for, the goals with whoever I work with. I want to get there, but it's my job. One of the first things that I have to do is to assess whether what they expect is doable or not, and then educate them on that, right? Or how do we get there? So not seeing that result doesn't mean they're doing a bad job or they're not doing anything. It might just mean that both them and you have to go back and sort of
Mm.
assess some things.
Cool. And I guess all of that applies the other way too. Like if you're an SEO and you're working for a client who's like, oh, I want to rank number one and you must promise me these things. At
Right.
some point, like that discussion kind of has to find a middle ground where
Yeah.
it's like for both sides, there has to be like a reality check. And it's like, well, we can't do this. If you want this, maybe we're not the right people for you.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Exactly. And I think many agencies and freelancers know now that it's not just the next client they're on board, it's their reputation at stake. It's very competitive space. There are so many approaches. So they know that if they sign up for something like this when they don't believe in this and they don't work like that, it will end up either costing them too much resource and time and energy and not help them build the clientele they want as well, essentially.
Cool.
This has been really interesting. I think it sort of sets the stage for how to be thinking about SEO in the context of your overall business strategy, which I feel like people are looking at from like a business perspective, but I think it's important that we talk about it. Is there anything that we haven't covered that would be your one takeaway that you want people to come away from this podcast episode, or someone who's thinking about assessing this bottom
Yes.
line?
Yeah. Can I have two takeaways?
You can have two. That's fine.
Are they even takeaways if there's more than one? Okay, so my number one is be very critical
Hmm.
with SEO, right? Don't just go for the fancy numbers, projections, terms, and be especially cautious when people come to you with out of context graphs of successful SEO or just super amazing results that give you no context how they did it, how they got there, who, anything. So that is one, be very critical. Um, and number two is really look at SEO from the angle of communication. Are you happy with how your SEO communicates with you? Are they proactive? Are they flexible? Are they have they signed up with your goals? Like regardless of whether they're freelance or in-house, they're helping you build a business, a revenue and growth. Do they look right? Do they offer you the right advice to get there? You need to be able to vet that kind of stuff. If you feel like you cannot, either you don't have enough input from them, or they use terminology never explaining, or you don't have reporting that's transparent, that's probably a very big red flag.
And John, just to leave the floor open for you, would you have any takeaways that, or maybe something you learned from this episode?
I think these are all very good points. It's something where I think from our side, we tend to document how we think SEO should work. And it's like, especially from this conversation, it's pretty clear that it's not so much like a one-way thing, but it's always a two-way discussion. And like both sides have to kind of agree to common goals, and they have to kind of reality check both sides, I guess. So that's been really insightful. Really like that.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, Erika. And it was so nice to meet you in this sort of serendipitous way. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn with my not very easy surname, but Erika Varangouli.
We'll put the link in the description so people can just click it and find out.
And sporadically on X, I have a weird relation with X. So they're at Find Erika, which is ironic now that I think about it. So yeah.
It's very SEO. All right, well, that's it for this episode. In the next episode of Search Off the Record, we're going behind the scenes of SRE with 2 special guests from the SRE team. So be sure to stay tuned for that one. I'm sure it'll be unusual. Thank you, folks, for listening, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
We've been having fun with this podcast, and I hope you, the listener, have found it both entertaining and insightful too. Feel free to drop us a note on Twitter at Google Search C, or chat with us at one of the next events we go to if you have any thoughts. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you and goodbye.